Welcome to the Sunday Reach by the Indian Dominicans. Dear brothers and sisters, it has been the understanding of many philosophers and saints that we are made in such a way that we seek happiness. Happiness is a kind of end or purpose for which we are created. Aristotle says, happiness is the meaning and the purpose of life, the whole aim and end of human existence. While many philosophers limited this happiness to this world itself, many saints pointed us to God as that happiness who can truly satisfy our desire. True happiness for Augustine, for example, requires that we go beyond the natural to the supernatural. He says that the human nature is so made that it cannot itself be the good by which it is made happy. We are made in such a way that we see God, who is the source and end of human nature, as taught by Saint Thomas Aquinas. Now the question we need to ask here is, if happiness is that we seek, what is the role of the cross in our lives? In order to understand this, let us look at the gospel in three stages. Firstly, the gospel reminds us of a pattern we have to follow. The first part of the gospel says, from that time, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and the chief priests and the scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. The Lord announces not only the cross, but also the resurrection. He did not announce the cross as a single event to follow in his life, but it is followed by the resurrection. So Jesus is announcing a pattern he has to follow in his life. And not in his life alone, but in any life in general. The cross leads somewhere. It accomplishes something. It is not an end in itself. It has a purpose. It is part of a pattern. Look at the nature. It also follows this pattern, where the cross has an important place, and they silently follow that path to life. We humans, because we are different from them, are conscious of the cross and its importance, but want to run away and choose an easy path to glory, a path devoid of pain and cross. But nature teaches us, no pain, no gain. This is what Jesus is pointing us to. Resurrection awaits him, but before that, he has to take up the cross. That is the law of life, not just natural life, but supernatural life too. God gives us grace, but our constant efforts are also must. The cross brings life. It is a prelude to growth. We die in order to live more richly. An old spiritual saying of this repeated pattern says, every round goes higher and higher. Neither the Lord nor the church announces the cross so as to a burden for us. No, the cross is part of a pattern that, if accepted with faith, brings blessing, a new life, and greater strength. We shouldn't be mistaken that he is pleased to give us crosses. Rather, he is pleased to see us grow. And he chose the cross to redeem us and wants us to follow that path to life and growth. Secondly, the gospel warns us of our attempts to prevent the cross. The second part of the gospel, we read, then Peter took Jesus aside and began to rebuke him. God forbid, Lord, no such thing shall ever happen to you. He turned and said to Peter, get behind me, Satan. You are an obstacle to me. You are thinking not as God does, but as human beings do. Peter's words represent our attitude at times in life. Peter says, no such thing shall ever happen to you. We need to ask, what such things? Is Peter referring to the sufferings and the cross of Jesus? Or is he referring to the whole of the events that Jesus is mentioning? which also includes his resurrection. Peter doesn't realize that his expression of love for Jesus in blocking the sufferings and death of Jesus also blocks the rising and glorification of Jesus, for Christ cannot rise unless he dies. We are at times like Peter, when we seek to avoid crosses for ourselves and hinders others inappropriately from accepting their crosses. The cross brings glory and growth. If we constantly avoid them, thinking them to be burdensome, we are also losing the essential and complete picture of our life. Cross brings about glory, and cross brings about growth indeed. So running away from the crosses of self-discipline, hard work, obedience, suffering, overcoming temptation can deprive us of its fruits. Thirdly, the gospel gives us a prescription to follow in this regard. In the final part of the gospel, Jesus imparts further light on the wisdom of and the need for the cross. This part of the gospel says, "If any man would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life would lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his life? Or what shall a man give in return for his life?" These verses, in fact, shed more light on the problem we had raised initially. It is that if we are made for happiness, then why are there crosses in life? Why are there struggles and pains? The gospel is pointing to the fact that crosses have an important role to play even in our pursuit of happiness. An important cross that we need to follow, therefore, is the cross of dying to ourselves. This is in fact another way of asking ourselves to prioritize our lives. T.S. Eliot says, "Most of the troubles in this world is caused by people wanting to be important. If so, how much more blessings we can bring if we try to make God and others so important in our lives. But inappropriate love for ourselves and for anything that is of our lower nature can blind us from reaching that goal, the ultimate source of our happiness. Hence, the cross is necessary and death is necessary to lead us to that happiness we long and deserve." Amen.